Welcome, everyone. The event is now live. John, please take it away.
Thanks, Victoria. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live tech talk. Stop overpaying for Microsoft 365, licensing clarity, cost savings, and AI readiness. This event was organized by the hardworking folks at Redmond Magazine, and it's sponsored by TrustedTech, a Microsoft cloud solution provider committed to providing dependable expertise through collaborative solutions. I'm John K. Waters, editor-in-chief in the Converge 360 group of 1105 Media, and I'm joined today by two M365 specialists from TrustedTech, John Ho, who focuses on licensing and security, and Andrew Ramos, who specializes in licensing and strategy. Hi, guys.
Hey, John.
Hello.
Pleasure to be here.
So as lead account manager at TrustedTech, John Ho specializes in helping organizations optimize their Microsoft 365 ecosystems and strengthen their overall productivity and security posture. As a leading voice at TrustedTech, John empowers clients to maximize their cloud investments while staying ahead of an increasingly complex and evolving threat landscape. As an account manager at TrustedTech, Andrew Ramos specializes in helping organizations streamline their Microsoft 365 ecosystems and optimize complex renewal strategies. By bridging the gap between technical requirements and financial goals, he empowers his clients to make confident, high-impact decisions for long-term technical roadmaps. These are two great guys for this conversation today, and I'm really looking forward to it, but I've got to do just a little bit of housekeeping. This Tech Talk is being recorded for later access. Keep an eye out for an email with a link to that recording. It'll be coming your way in the next few days. Our sponsor has provided some extra resources you won't want to miss. They're available now on your console. And at the end of the conversation, we'll have a 5 to 10 minute Q&A. Please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box. When they occur to you, we'll do our very best at the end to get to all of them. Okay, let's dive in. Microsoft 365 licensing is full of hidden traps. Mismatched SKUs, misunderstood entitlements, and costs that creep up without improving security or productivity. With the price increase on the horizon, now is the time to take a hard look at what you have. Our experts will share practical frameworks during our conversations for getting M365 licensing right, uncovering savings, and preparing for that July 2026 change, adopting AI offerings like Copilot and the right licenses and security posture from day one. Okay, let's start with you, John. What's your framework for deciding when an organization actually needs E5 versus E3, and what are the most commonly misunderstood differences between these SKUs?
Of course, John, very nice name. Thank you for having us on this webinar here. So the Microsoft 365 E3 versus the E5, right? These two licenses are considered enterprise level on Microsoft's licensing SKU page. Essentially, E3 is meant for organizations that are kind of the mid-market, right? And they're scaling towards that enterprise environment. They need some of those tools that can really get them to the place where they can manage hundreds, maybe even thousands of devices, and then also apply endpoint security across the board, right? So a lot of times when we have these conversations with our customers, we always ask them, what's the maturity of their security stack? Because even some of the SMB customers that we work with will be utilizing third-party security like CrowdStrike or maybe Barracuda, any of these big names out there. And we want to make sure that, first of all, you're not overpaying for two types of features. And second of all, what do you get out of these security partners along with what you get outside, or within Microsoft here, right? So it would really depend on the granularity of what exactly you need on the security feature front. So for example, the E3 license itself does include Defender for Endpoint P1. It's kind of like Microsoft's antivirus solution here, while the E5 will include a full EDR platform that is comparable to the likes of CrowdStrike or Huntress, any of these big name EDR players out there. So yeah, it would depend on exactly what you need and how mature your current security stack is right now.
Okay, maybe a thought for Andrew. For organizations currently on Business Premium, what specific usage patterns or security requirements should trigger a conversation about moving to E3 or E5?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. So essentially, the way I like to position business premium versus, say, an ME3 or an ME5 to my clients is where they're at within their Microsoft journey specifically. It doesn't necessarily have to associate to security and compliance, but realistically, it eventually does, right? So just to give you context, the main delineation between where I would recommend, say, a business premium versus an E3, for example, is how large is your business? How many licenses are you actually buying? Right. And part of the reason that that's the case is because the business core suite licenses, business premium being one of those, of course, is capped at 300 users. Right. So the moment you hit 300, you're going to go to user number 301. Unfortunately, you're going to have to go to something like an ME3 or an ME5. Right. I love saying the business premium is the best bang for your buck license. But of course, as the organization grows, you want to make sure you're adopting, enterprise grade productivity, compliance, maybe a higher level of security specifically. And honestly, the ME3 is just much more scalable, right? One day we're going to want to be at 1,000 users, 2,000 users, and there is no cap on the ME3, right? So that's really specifically where I would say, business premium versus E3 or E5 starts to make sense, right? Another thing I would add on top of that is, you know, I joke and say the ME5 is like the Ferrari of Microsoft licensing. So, kind of honing back to what John said in the last question, where are you guys at? Where do you want to be? Right? What's your roadmap like? And that's really what I do here at Trusted Tech is what's the strategic roadmap for 12 months, 24 months down the road? Are we going to be deprecating other third-party cybersecurity software platforms? Maybe you're not quite there yet, and eventually you need to be there, right? That's where the discussion around, maybe from business premium to ME3 or ME5 comes into play.
John, how should IT leaders approach the bundle versus a la carte decision when it comes to securing add-ons like Defender and Entra ID Premium?
Yeah, great question. And first, let's clarify, what is a bundle and a la carte, right? The bundles are basically your Microsoft 365 E3s, E5s. These are bundle licenses because they hold a lot of the a la carte, the add-on licenses that you would find, such as the Defender for Office Plan 1, which is the email security portion in Microsoft. And then there's the Enter IDP 1, which is identity security, right? These are the a la carte SKU names that will all be included in something like, in an E3 come in July, right? So when it comes to understanding what exactly you need between a bundle versus a la carte, how much of the feature will you be utilizing in a bundled SKU? So say you're looking at whether you guys want to move towards a Microsoft E5 or add on a Defender suite to your current Microsoft E3, right? For example, and you only need the Enter IDP 2, which will provide you that risk-based conditional access, right? That's just one portion of the Microsoft E5. At that point, I would just recommend you to add a Enter IDP 2, just have the a la carte license attached to the E3, and it'll save you the money from adding a whole Defender suite or adding and upgrading all your licenses to an E5, right? But when you take a look at the bigger picture, right, what can I, like Andrew mentioned, what can I consolidate from my cybersecurity partners, right? I use CrowdStrike, they're really expensive. I want to move into Microsoft and manage it on my own. You can take a look at Microsoft EDR platform, which is available in something like an E5. And that's where it makes more sense to go with a bundle upgrade instead of adding things a la carte. Because when you add a la carte, as everyone would probably know with your Netflix packages and all that, it's a little bit cheaper going with a bundle. And that's fully intentional from Microsoft. So, that's where we want to come in, understand where you guys are in your security stack, what kind of security licenses and features you need, and if it makes sense to make that bundled purchase with the discounts that Microsoft can offer, definitely we want to go that route.
So Andrew, this makes me wonder, what's the most expensive licensing mistake you see organizations repeatedly making, and how can they audit for it? And then just kind of as an add-on question, what beyond just counting unused licenses are the less obvious places where organizations are bleeding money in their Microsoft 365 spend?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say, there are less obvious places, but I want to start at the obvious, right? Because I just want to make sure that our clients and anyone who's, coming through our door here at Trusted Tech is, one, aware of when their M365 renewals are, right? Sometimes those can be scattered. One of the things we do here internally is help co-term all of your licenses to one specific date. So we have one conversation per year to make those adjustments, right? And that's something we do here internally, as account managers, right? So that's one. I always joke and say sometimes I'll hop on calls with clients and they'll say, well, Andrew, I'm not using these 150 licenses. Well, that's $600 a month right there that we can trim the fat of, right? So that we always want to start there. However, of course, there are less obvious places, and there are some pretty common motifs when it comes to mistakes that I see clients making. If you have a business standard license, for example, basic productivity applications, Teams, Exchange Online, the basics, right? And you're adding on, a random Defender license a la carte, and you're adding on a random maybe Microsoft Purview feature that you need a la carte. And then you're adding on Microsoft Intune because you need mobile device management and you want to lock down the devices. Before you know it, you're actually spending more money than if you were to consolidate, right? Make your IT administrators' lives easier from a management perspective. And you would actually end up saving more money moving to something like a business premium, right? I would say, by far, that's the number one thing that I see clients making the mistake of. And I don't even like to call it a mistake. They just, they just don't know, right? And that's where we come in and we can try and consult with them and let them know, hey, you're better off just consolidating here. We're going to help you make your life easier within a, management perspective and go from there. And I look, honestly, on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you have ME5 and you only need business premium, that's money right there that you're spending unnecessarily that you can allocate to something else within your IT budget. So honestly, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see. And it's kind of at both ends of the spectrum, right?
Okay, John. How do you recommend organizations handle the gap between what users are licensed for and what they actually use, especially with power users versus occasional users?
Yeah, definitely. It does, segue into this question, right? With what Andrew's bringing up here, managing users within Microsoft 365, putting them into groups, making sure that you're on top of it when someone leaves the company. It's literally a job in itself. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys out there can relate to this. There's plenty of other things that you're handling: security, networking. Maybe vendors are coming in. Oh, maybe Diana from accounting cannot access her computer because she forgot her password, right? These are other things that you're working on. Microsoft 365 probably is only 10% of your daily tasks. And it's really hard, since it's really hard for a single admin to really manage everything and get it under grasp. You'll have cases where, like Andrew mentioned, 650 users or 150 users who are, licensed but not using the features of it. You're just wasting money. You're kind of just throwing it down the drain here. I've personally seen many cases where there's a lot of industrial companies that have a lot of frontline workers working in the factories here, and they're licensed with a Microsoft E3, right? Microsoft does have their own specific frontline licenses, but some of these users don't even need any security. They just need a simple enter ID, and that's all. Right, so there's a lot of overspending that we see that's common when you have your so many things on your plate that you're trying to juggle, and that's where TrustedTech really comes in here. We have a lot of technical and licensing expertise here. These advisors will guide you guys and call out things that are highlighting like an overspend in licenses, or maybe you guys are not using the right licenses. Our end goal here is to make it a lot easier to manage your day-to-day licensing so that you can focus your tasks and focus your mind on the other aspects in your job, like networking, security, the more important stuff.
Okay, Andrew, with those July price increases coming, what specific action should organizations take in the next 90 days to lock in better rates or restructure their agreements?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it kind of shocked a lot of people, right? Essentially, Microsoft made the announcement back in December, a couple months back, that they're going to be increasing prices on all of the core suites. Now, with that being said, they haven't had a major core suite pricing increase since really 2022. So it's been about 4 years now. And there is a silver lining, right? There are going to be additional features added into a lot of the core suite licenses. So that you guys have better AI capabilities. Maybe you're getting more integrated within Defender and Purview from a compliance perspective. So those are good things, right? Just to give you a quick lowdown on what's going on, right? Since 2022, since the last price increase, over 1,100 features have been added to the licenses, right? And now they're kind of coming up market and saying, not only are we integrating certain Copilot features within some of these SKUs, we're also getting security and compliance in there as well. One question that I get asked a lot from my clients is, what is a core suite license? And the way I would categorize a core suite license is really just any license that you are associating to the user identity that has the productivity applications, that has Exchange. So anything from business basic to business standard, all the way up to ME5, even some of the frontline licenses as well. So make no mistake, a lot of people within the Microsoft space will be affected by this. So really what you want to do looking forward, 90 days out, 120 days out, is one, make sure you know what type of licensing you're utilizing and what comes included. Two, know when the licensing is set to renew, right? Because if you renew on June 30th, 2026, you got another year before you have to technically pay that pricing increase. Conversely, if you renew on July 5th, unfortunately, you're going to have to, take into account from a budgeting perspective that your price is going to go up at your renewal on July 5th. So I would say that, those are the two big things that people need to start looking at and figuring out what you want to have within your Microsoft environment in the future. Maybe you're on business standard now. You're not using other cybersecurity software platforms from a security perspective, right? You want to implement Microsoft Defender, but maybe not until 2027. Well, I mean, it would be a good idea to take a look at maybe locking in some of those prices before, June 30th or July 1st, so that in the future you have the peace of mind of knowing you're not going to have to pay more.
Mm-hmm. That is great advice. John, I'm wondering, for organizations exploring Copilot, what's the minimum viable licensing strategy to pilot it effectively without overcommitting financially? Kind of the theme.
Yeah, of course. And as you all probably heard on all of the Microsoft Ignites, NVIDIA, AI is the biggest name right now, right? All the C-suites are saying AI, AI, AI. I'm getting sick of hearing AI, to be honest with you. But it does come with the consideration of what AI can possibly do for your environment, right? There are many different types of AI out there. Copilot is just one of them. It's a Microsoft platform built with OpenAI and ChatGPT. And it really does reside within your M365 environment, helping you guys, get a lot of return on investment and saving time to do simple tasks like, hey, I need to follow up with this individual here through Exchange, or hey, can you generate this presentation using this Excel sheet, right? These are that's where Copilot really distinguishes itself. But I know that it might not be for everyone. People are considering OpenAI, they're considering Claude. I've seen people come up and say Gemini is one of the best right now. So it's something that I've heard. And a lot of people are cautious of the spend because AI right now is pretty expensive. Copilot itself, MSRP wise, around $30 here per user on the enterprise level. There is a business SKU that's around 22 there. And it's hard to really swallow that investment for rolling out AI to every single user. So what I usually recommend for a lot of my customers here who are exploring AI would be to license for a small subset of users, right? So this could be executives, the IT team themselves, people who are really obsessed over and just absolutely need it. You can give them, I would say 10 or so licenses to play around with and see what kind of value you get, right? And it also helps the IT admin understand like, hey, this is the type of return investment I'm getting. This is what I can pitch to my executives, right? So that they can be on board with AI as well. A lot of times, when it comes to Copilot, people find a lot of benefit running a trial for 10 users, right? And they'll start adding more and more licenses there. And Microsoft does understand that. So some of the promotions that are going on with Copilot, which will allow you guys to save an additional percentage off the current MSRP, they're running until June 30th. And a lot of them are basically saying, hey, if you add a minimum 10 users, thus the test group, we can provide this discount for you for a year, right? And then when you scale up with Copilot, say that's something you want to invest in, you'll have that discount with you throughout that whole term here. So definitely something to take advantage of. But yeah, start small and then grow big.
So Andrew, how do the different Copilot SKUs actually overlap or complement each other in practice? I'm thinking M365 Copilot, Security Copilot, and the various Azure AI offerings.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I know the naming conventions can get pretty confusing pretty quickly. So, it's our job here at Trusted Tech to kind of walk you through the labyrinth of Microsoft licensing in general, right? Not just related to Copilot. I would say there's three different tiers, and you hit the nail on the head, John. I would say there's three different tiers of Copilot licenses themselves. There's the M365 Copilot, which essentially integrates within your productivity applications. This is for day-to-day use, right? This can be kind of moved out to all employees, maybe within Excel, within Teams, within Outlook. You're looking for just operational efficiency. That's what it's all about, right? Summarize this email, create this pivot table, create this chart within Excel. We're trying to give you time back in your day, and that's Microsoft's goal with this specific license. When you branch out, there's different elements of artificial intelligence that are being injected in all different types of licensing, right? So for example, Copilot for security is really more focused on, automated threat hunting, really geared more towards the actual IT administrators, cybersecurity analysts, that you can basically roll out to the entire Microsoft tenant to make sure that Microsoft Defender, right, and these two integrate seamlessly, is doing what it's actually supposed to be doing. It'll give you automated security signals, and you can really customize the developmental logic itself within Copilot for security. Quick note, the ME5 will actually have Copilot for security included as one of the add-on features after the July 1st increase, right? So that's kind of the silver lining here, kind of going back to a previous question, right, is they're integrating a lot of this AI stuff into certain SKUs, right? So it's probably worth taking a look at and saying, okay, from an ROI perspective, if I do move to ME5, okay, I'm actually getting X, Y, Z, and we can allude to that later here as well. When it comes to Azure AI Foundry, this is very niche, okay? This is for organizations specifically who are creating their own LLMs within Azure, and training on their own subsets of data that they are providing to the model. It can get pretty pricey pretty quickly, I'll be honest, understandably, hosting your own LLM. But it is hyper-specific. You can train it on the data that you want. And it's really integrated with, data warehousing and Fabric and all of that good stuff. So I would say Azure AI Foundry is really more geared towards the data side of the house, and developing insights using AI, right? That's kind of from a 30,000-foot view, some of the differences between Copilot. And I'll be honest, if you're just starting out, if you're confused, of course, you can come to us here at Trusted Tech and we can start walking you through this. But really, do what John said, right? Get 5 to 10 users on a normal M365 Copilot license, and then go from there, right? Are you actually getting more time back in your day? If the answer is yes, you can start diving a little bit deeper and going into different solutions.
Yeah, and I have something to add to that as well, because Copilot, as many people know, it is one of the best when it comes to agentic AI. So there are a few projects that I've been working on with my Azure team here. For example, just to give you guys a little bit taste of what other businesses are doing, but we have a business where their headquarters is in Japan, right? And essentially they need to have town halls, webinars with all their other global offices. We're developing essentially an Azure OpenAI agent that will live translate Japanese into English or whatever the native language is for their specific office on that particular call. Just make things so much easier. It allows people to hop on, tune in at the same time. It's just something that's really amazing in terms of a project that we're working on here. And that's something that, Microsoft Copilot and Azure OpenAI can do.
Okay, John. So what governance and security configuration should already be in place before deploying Copilot? And do those require additional licensing?
Yeah, so great question here. This is one of the most common questions I get when I talk about Copilot is, what are the prerequisites, right? What else do I need aside from the $30, $20 license that I need to add per user? Well, really, it is dependent on what you guys have configured for your DLP or data loss prevention and purview policies within your tenant here. Since Copilot itself lives on Graph API, it draws data from within your Microsoft environment. So that means if you're storing HR documents on SharePoint and you don't have the right labeling on those particular documentation, someone who's being cheeky in the front end can actually just type in a prompt and say like, hey, can you pull up all the data revolving Social Security for a particular user, and then it will actually do it. It will actually do it right in front of them. And that's why we heavily emphasize for people to have a configured DLP and Purview foundation before rolling out Copilot. So my recommended bare minimum for a license here will be a business premium. Basically having a business premium in place and then adding a Copilot for Business or Copilot 365 license on top of that, right? And I say that because going back to the Social Security story, we did have a client here who on a live call with us in a consulting session, we challenged him to say, hey, can you just type in and just see if it actually happens, right? And he was really doubtful of it. Did it. It actually pulled up the documentation. I told him to turn off his screen immediately because we don't want to see that. Don't want to be involved in that. But the next day, he signed on to do a project with us because he saw the value and exactly how important it is to make sure that your labeling policies and your DLP is in place, right? That's a common pattern that we see in a lot of our conversations here. And we want to make sure if you're rolling out AI, if you're putting in company information, even into public AI, we want to make sure that that is kept safe and that the company's information is kept confidential.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of AI, Andrew, are you seeing any particular E3 versus E5 features becoming critical enablers for AI adoption? And how does that change the licensing calculus?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, kind of alluding to what John just said, honestly, if I were to choose one add-on, one particular suite outside of a core suite license like an ME3 or an ME5 that you can bolt onto that, it would definitely be the Microsoft Purview suite, right? And the reason I say that is because the Microsoft Purview suite is really, the advanced capabilities from a compliance perspective for your admins to start setting up policies for. So the big things that I hear all the time, data loss prevention, DLP, right? Personal health information and setting up tags there specifically, you're really not going to be able to get granular with that, especially if you're in a sensitive business vertical, right? HIPAA compliance, SOC 2 compliance, FedRAMP stuff, all that stuff is taken very seriously. And we want to make sure that not only are you compliant with Microsoft, but you're compliant within, the standards of what your business is expected to be operating under. Right? So data loss prevention within Microsoft Purview, some of the other features that come included like auditing, that's going to be huge. And as a matter of fact, if you have something like a business premium, yes, you have the basic Purview capabilities. And we, at the bare minimum, like John said, recommend at least that license. Luckily, for a lot of our smaller customers who are below 300 users, Microsoft does have a Purview suite and Defender suite specifically tailored for business premium users at a fraction of the cost of what an ME5 would be, right? This is a relatively new announcement from a licensing perspective, but you can pair that on and then you basically have advanced Purview capabilities at the fraction of a cost of an ME5. The final thing I'll say here as well, make sure your SharePoint policies are up to standard. You can't imagine how many times someone who thinks someone else within an organization doesn't have access to a certain SharePoint site. Maybe even the user doesn't even know that they have access to a certain SharePoint site. And they definitely do. And the IT administrators don't know. So if there's two things I could recommend, it's set up basic Purview policies and make sure your SharePoint sharing policies are up to standard, right? Because that's really what's going to get you in the long run.
Okay, John, let's touch on maybe some mistakes. What are the most common misconfigurations or entitlement misunderstandings that prevent organizations from actually using the security features they're already paying for?
Yeah, I think most people watching this already know, and I mean, we definitely know for sure, is that Microsoft licensing is a maze, literally like a jungle. It's very daunting, and it's to properly configure like the best practices for exactly what you need. They have plenty of Microsoft Learn articles out there, but some of them are outdated, some of them are kind of all over the place, or you just don't have time to read through, hundreds of thousands of pages of Microsoft's own product, right? So basically, like I said earlier, Microsoft 365 is its own job. Some of the misconfigurations that I see here would really depend on your licensing. So a lot of people, I would advise if you have business premium in your tenant right now, double check to make sure you're using everything. Are you using Defender for Office, the email security suite? Are you using Enter ID with conditional access? Are you using Intune, which a lot of people don't know that business premium does include Intune with Windows Autopilot from the Enter ID, right? Do you know there's an EDR platform in business premium? That license is extremely valuable, and I find a lot of people are saying, oh, I didn't know that was in there, or maybe they haven't really touched it yet, right? You want to get what you're paying for. You get your money's worth out of the licenses that you already have. So I do highly recommend you look into your security score from Microsoft. Is it sitting with a lot of recommendations here that you need to access and you need to take action on? Then please reach out to TrustedTech here, because that's something that we want to go through. We do assessments on our side where we go through there and really understand what you haven't configured yet, right? And what can you do to utilize the full potential of your license, especially if those who are saying business premium, maybe even E5, right? When you're paying $60 a license, or maybe even more than that, are you using all the features of that E5 license? That's something we really want to highlight and help you understand, so that you guys can get more value of what you already paid for.
And I'd like to add something here real quick as well, John. We understand this stuff is confusing to set up, right? The people that we talk to day in and day out, like in my opinion, in John's opinion, from what we've seen, by and large, they know what they're doing. A lot of these people have been in IT for 15, 20, 25 years. Microsoft is constantly updating, policy best practices. That shouldn't be your job to have to constantly stay up to tune on that, right? That's where we come in and we can say, okay, you only get the opportunity to greenfield once. Like if you're on a business standard and you're moving to a business premium, let's do it the right way, right? Let's set up conditional access policies within Entra. Let's make sure Intune is set up properly so you can mobily manage the devices that are associated to your users. And then, of course, let's make sure Defender and Purview are set up, at least from a basic capability. Because here's the other thing, even if you're moving from another solution, you're still going to have to replicate those policies within Microsoft, right? So that I would say that's a lot of the, some of the misconceptions or even the misconfigurations within M365 from a security perspective.
Okay, Andrew. So speaking of Intune, how should organizations think about Intune licensing in hybrid environments, especially when transitioning from on-prem management tools?
Oh, very good question. Yeah. So,
oh, we lost you. Lean in a little bit.
Yeah, check. Yeah, it's a great question. Right? We come across people all of the time that are coming from a hybrid Active Directory, right? It's old, it's cumbersome, and I understand from like a perpetual licensing perspective, maybe legacy applications, some people still need that, and that's totally fine. What we're recommending here internally at TrustedTech is move into Entra, right? Because what is another big misconception in the space is Intune itself cannot operate to its best capability unless Entra ID is set up for success. Right. So that's the big thing that I would say from a licensing perspective. Right. And you can see here on the slide, right, F1s and F3s, they actually come with Entra ID P1 and Intune as well. So we want to make sure every single device, no matter what the role is of the individual who's licensed in the organization, is covered. You have the full suite of Intune and Defender and Entra with Business Premium. And as you go down that line with ME5, you can get really specific and really hone in on risk-based conditional access policies from like an identity security perspective with PIM and all of that good stuff. So it is, John mentioned it is kind of daunting to learn about this stuff and transition from, on-premise into the cloud. But I can assure you it's going to make your life a lot easier, right? I mean, I hear it all the time. One of my clients is, has multiple different healthcare clinics all across the United States, mostly on the East Coast, but all across the United States. And he came to me and he said, Andrew, I literally have to fly from Philadelphia to Ohio, and go on site and set up these devices myself. the real value of Intune and fully deprecating, an on-premise or even a hybrid environment for identity is having the peace of mind of knowing you can log into the Intune admin center. The identity is already associated to the devices, and you can ship a device directly from Dell and straight to the end user and have the peace of mind of knowing their security is set up, and all they need to do is put in their email and all of the applications that they need are on there. So that's really the big value of Intune. And yeah, business premium is going to be the bare minimum to do that.
So John, I'm curious, with Entra ID features spread across different tiers, what's your decision tree for knowing when organizations need premium P1 versus P2?
Yeah, and that's a great question because you want to understand the granularity of the protection you get, right? What kind of identity protection do you want here? On the base level, Entra ID is going to provide conditional access. It's going to make sure that people who are not supposed to be able to log into the identity of that user cannot, right? And from what we've seen in terms of patterns, 60 to 70% of attacks, ransomware, right? And in the middle, all these things are done through the identity portion of your users, right? So with conditional access, you get the baseline. But if you're looking at something like Entra ID P2, which is the upgraded version, that's where Microsoft starts incorporating a lot of their machine learning to understand patterns over time and help you lock down these particular users, right? So an example would be risk-based conditional access, which is really interesting. It's basically where a user lives in New York, they work out of New York with the IP address there, and say 2 hours later, they're appearing suddenly in Taiwan. And you know that no one is going to be able to fly there unless you're Tony Stark. So that's kind of the identifier it will have. It will flag that. It'll let you know that, hey, this user likely a high risk here. They're logging in from another IP address they shouldn't be coming from, right? And that gives the admin more control to be able to say, hey, I need to make sure I double check this. Maybe they're using a VPN. Maybe they're actually getting breached here. I want to lock it down. And that's kind of where I'll tackle it from there, right? That's really like some of the big differences that we see when it comes to Entra ID P2. Another one would be like privileged identity management. So say if you know someone's going on vacation, they're going somewhere else in the world, and you want to make sure they have a token to be able to still access their work. I hope, first of all, they're not working on their vacation, but second of all, it does give you the flexibility to do so, right? So these are a type of things that, depending on what you need, how granular access, how much control you want on the identity protection side of things, will make sense between the Entra ID P1 and the Entra ID P2.
John,
okay, Andrew,
I think
looking at Microsoft's roadmap and those July changes, what capabilities or bundles do you anticipate will shift the best practice licensing recommendations?
Yeah, no, great question. I was gonna reference John's comments. We know all too well our clients here internally, they go on vacation and they're still emailing us sometimes. We're like, no, turn your computer off. Don't call us. Enjoy your time with the family. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, look, kind of alluding back to the original question you had, John, about, what's going on in July and how can people, our clients, people in the Microsoft space, the people on this call today, how can they plan, right? Well, here's the silver lining that I was talking about is technically there is a lot of value being added from a cost perspective into a lot of these SKUs. So just to give you a little bit of context, effective July 1st, 2026, the Microsoft 365 E3 is going to include Intune Plan 2. It's going to include Intune Remote Help. It's going to include Intune Advanced Analytics, and it's also going to include Microsoft Defender for Office 365 Plan 1. Okay? If you were to bundle all of those licenses a la carte into your ME3, you would be paying $14.50. Mm. The ME3 is only going up by $3, okay, from an MSRP perspective. So that's just something to keep in the back of your head. And that's why strategic planning is so important. Okay, do I want to implement Microsoft Defender for Office? Okay, well, that add-on is a $2 license. And maybe I might need Intune Remote Help too. I don't really care about the other stuff, but that alone justifies the price increase from a Microsoft perspective, right? Another perfect example, the ME5. You're getting the full Intune suite, and you're also getting Security Copilot as well, right? And the ME5 is also only going up by about $3. That's $11.60 of value. So you kind of have to look at it holistically, that Microsoft is integrating a lot of these features, right? Another big thing that a lot of people have been asking me when I hop on calls with clients is, what's going on with the Microsoft 365 Business Premium licensing? Well, technically, good news for Business Premium users in small, medium-sized organizations, the Business Premium is not going up. There's only 2 core suite licenses that are not receiving a price increase on July 1st. Business Premium is one of them, right? So if you're below 300 users, if you're on a Business Basic or a Business Standard, now is the time to really take a look and say, okay, am I going to be implementing this stuff within the next 6 to 12 months? Because if so, I need to get approval now to flip to Business Premium before it's too late, right? So that's really where Microsoft is coming from a value perspective, and you can see it highlighted very beautifully here on this graphic as well.
Okay, John, it seems to me, organizations are going to be faced with the question of balancing locking in current pricing versus maintaining flexibility for the AI and security features Microsoft is rapidly releasing. Do you have any advice about that?
Yeah, I mean, plug here, consult with TrustedTech, right? I mean, we are essentially a bunch of licensing experts here. As you see, Ramos is having fun with it. We always want to make sure that we're flexible and we're strategizing with you on ways that you can save money and also implement your security goals, right? A lot of times, it's all about the value. There's a lot of things that we can take a look at together. I know each tenant is going to be different. There's different needs, there's different roadmaps, different goals that you guys have to manage your environment. And that's where we want to really assist you to help you understand, right? Maybe you have a lot of factory workers or frontline workers who just need a frontline license. Or maybe there's some people who need a lot more security than you thought, right? These kind of configurations are what we'll strategize with you guys on. A lot of what we approach with is a very human approach. We want to make sure it's flexible. We want to make sure it's tailored to your particular tenant. It's not going to be a cookie cutter response where, oh, this is a bundle where it has Microsoft licensing plus support. No, it's going to be tailored to exactly what you need so that you guys can achieve your goals while also saving a good amount of money and optimize your entire tenant, right? So that's why I do have, Andrew and my team here, the account management side. That's our main goal. That's our passion. That's what we want to do for you. And we want to be sure that you can start that conversation with us.
Yep. Andrew, what role should Microsoft support levels play in the overall licensing strategy? I'm thinking especially organizations scaling their M365 footprint. We talking unified, premier alternatives? What do you think?
Oh, man. John, how much time do you have? I think we're going to have to set up another one of these. We're opening up a whole other can of worms here. No, but I'm joking. But in all seriousness, I mean, look, we've had a great conversation so far about the technicalities of Microsoft licensing. It's daunting. It's confusing. That's kind of a recurring motif, right? The real value of a trusted partner like TrustedTech is our ability to consult with our clients, right? So I want to provide some context here, right? Because I feel like within the space, especially from a long time ago, I would say 5+ years ago, Microsoft support, at least now in my experience, has kind of been seen as very reactive, right? Something is broken, a user is having an issue, my Intune is not syncing up with my device, something reactive to an issue that's occurring, right? And realistically speaking, I mean, support directly with Microsoft has slowly been dwindling in quality over the past couple of years. And it's to no fault of their own, right? Part of the reason that that's the case is they're offloading a lot of that support to partners like TrustedTech, right? What I really want to focus on here is what can we do on the offensive, right? What can we do from a proactive perspective for our clients to help them so that, one, we're setting them up so they don't have to call us, that something is broken within their environment. And then two, they're actually utilizing the features that they're paying for. So you can see how this kind of comes full circle, right? I'll give you some context as to how we do it here. So we have a full certified support services team, as well as a professional services division, right? So I would argue that this comes with really 3 main pillars of proactive services that we provide. One is our consulting sessions. And I would say this is kind of the bedrock of what we do here internally at TrustedTech. If you have questions, if you have concerns, maybe you're running into a bit of an issue from like a policy integration perspective, you can hop on a call with a cloud support engineer specific to the issue you're having, or the question that you need answered, via a Teams meeting, and they'll break it down for you. They'll screen share with you. They'll show you how to set up X, Y, and Z policy, and this is within the M365 and Azure space, right? So that's one. Two is our dedicated cloud engineer offering. Think of the DCE as like an augmentation of your IT staff. John, you mentioned it earlier in the chat here today. Sometimes for some of these admins, Microsoft is 10 to 20% of their day. You guys don't have time to be going in and looking at your policies day in, day out. Let us do that for you, right? It's almost like renting an engineer and expanding your team. The third thing as well is our professional services division. So we have a full team of delivery architects that are going in and meeting with our clients, developing full scope of works for white glove services. The only thing that we ask from our clients is to meet with the delivery team and their project manager once a week, and they will have a fully implemented solution with training by the end of the engagement, right? So whether you're looking to implement Intune, set up Defender, anything, right? We can go in. If you don't have time to do it, we'll take it off your hands and do it for you, right? And so tying it all back into like, some of the different support types within the space right now. I mean, realistically speaking, unified support, some of the grievances that I've heard, unified support coming directly from Microsoft is, they charge you based off of a specific amount of spend. So if you're spending $500,000 a month in Microsoft licensing or whatever the number is, they're going to take a percentage of that and just charge you there. That's not what we do here, right? We're going to custom tailor a solution for what your needs are. Maybe you don't need professional services and you like to learn and do it yourself. Maybe you don't care to learn it and you just want us to do it for you. Let us handle that. We're gonna sit down with our clients and prospective clients and make sure that we custom tailor a solution for them, right?
Okay, so for my final question, I always like to ask, for some, some actionable advice, and maybe I'll point this at John, but Andrew, join in if you like. If you had to give one piece of advice to help organizations get their licensing house in order before the next renewal cycle, what would it be?
Yeah, be proactive. I mean, I like Andrew alluded to, being proactive, not just on the support side, but also when it comes to your security stance, right? That's what I emphasize for all my clients. Like, instead of dealing with a 3 a.m. phone call that someone got breached, right? Why not just have the security in place, have a managed SOC there, have someone who, you can trust and can protect you before that even happens, right? Or maybe you're on vacation, you're the only admin in your company. You want to make sure you enjoy that vacation and not have to deal with a fire. And I've heard it plenty of times where like I'm trying to enjoy my cruise, but I'm being called left and right because Bob clicked on a phishing link and now the entire company is going through a ransomware attack. That's exactly what I want to prevent, both on the support side, on the security side, and really when it comes to the upcoming renewal, preventing the price increase that's coming up. Right? Talk to us. That's all we want here. Just talk to us. Talk to us about what you guys currently have in your environment, what your goals are in the future here. We have a team of licensing experts, including Mr. Ramos here, who are able to really do a deep dive on your Microsoft environment, help optimize your spend, and help you achieve your goals. In the end, that's why we're here. We always want to make sure our solutions that we provide you are tailored, specific to your needs here. And I'm sure, Andrew can talk a little bit more on that since we're both in the trenches day to day.
Yeah, you can say that again. It's currently renewal season on the Microsoft side. So, we've been having these conversations day in and day out. I'll say one thing here. Microsoft 365, I always make jokes, right? When I get on these calls is like, are you a business in North America or Western Europe? Yes or no? Well, obviously, yes. Okay. Do you use Microsoft? 95% of the time, that answer is yes, in some capacity. The reality is this is a strategic investment. I mean, IT, I think now over the past 5 years, CEOs, leadership, they understand cybersecurity, IT. It's just strategic planning for the business at this point. With AI coming to the forefront, this is just a reality that you're going to have to spend money on. So let's be proactive, right? As a team that's with TrustedTech and our clients, or with TrustedTech and you all in the audience, and let's figure out what your goals are, right? This isn't just, I don't want people viewing the Microsoft licensing as, something, oh my goodness, I have to take this to my CFO and get this approved. No, this is a strategic investment in your business. right? Because like John alluded to, what's going to happen when you're getting the call at 3 a.m. that you're getting ransomed for $50,000? These and here's the other, curveball coming in is cybersecurity software insurance, right? All of this stuff is coming to the forefront, and I think more and more businesses, leadership, IT professionals are realizing Microsoft is a strategic investment, and it's something that you need a game plan for. So let us help you, right? And that's what this licensing consultation is. Reach out to us. We're going to get you on a phone call. We're going to look through all of your licensing. We're going to get you some better pricing too, by the way. And we're going to game plan with you, right? That's really what this is all about. Microsoft is here to stay, right? So we might as well do it right.
Okay, guys, that's all of my questions, but we got a bunch of questions from the attendees. I want to remind everybody, you can type your questions into the Q&A box at any time. We'll do our best to get to all of them. Let's take this first question from Nadia, who's wondering, what is the price increase for Business Basic specifically? Is Business Premium not affected? If so, why? That's a jump ball, whoever wants to answer.
Andrew, I think you want to take this one?
Yeah, no, and it's an excellent question. So, and I'm sure we can provide some resources as well. When you guys come in and initially meet with us for the licensing consultation, of course, we can provide the actual documentation that Microsoft is showing. A quick Google search, July 1st price increase, Microsoft will give you the full breakdown. Currently, the MSRP for the Business Basic license on an annual commitment billed annually is $6. Okay. That's actually going up to $7 effective July 1st. Nadia, I wish I could tell you why Microsoft is not increasing the business premium, but I'm not going to complain about it, right? I think it's a good move. I think they're incentivizing people who are on Business Basic and Business Standard to move to Business Premium because they're aware of the security benefits that come included. I will say for Business Basic specifically, there are two big things that are being included in that license, and it's the exact same for Business Standard users that are in the audience. Copilot chat security enhancements, and then every business core suite license will be going from a 50 gigabyte mailbox, active mailbox size to 100 gigabytes of active mailbox size. Now, just remember, and by the way, John, I see you shaking your head. I've actually had a lot of people, unfortunately, have to add on an ME3 to some of the users in their environment that need 100 gigabytes of mail storage. That's not going to be the case anymore. So that's good news, right? Just a note, though, it's only going to take place in July. So effective July 1st is when that's going to happen. So don't expect to move up to a Business Premium or something in April and have the 100 gigabytes. So that's just a caveat there. But to answer your question, Nadia, yeah, it's going up by about $1.
Okay, this one is from Laura, who says, I have heard Business Premium for nonprofits is going away, and we will have to move to E3. Is that true?
Yes and no. So there is a grant for Business Premium that Microsoft does provide. I'm not sure how many licenses total, but it does provide you with a good amount of licenses on the Business Premium front. That has been retired as of July in 2025. Now, the regular Business Premium nonprofit SKU is to remain and is to stay. Plenty of people still use it. It's a very, very valuable license here. You're still going to get the nonprofit discounts on that particular SKU. So that's not going to change. You won't need to move to an E3. But anything that you're getting that's free from for the Business Premium, whether there's Microsoft Direct or a current partner, will need to be switched to the paid version, unfortunately. But that's the biggest change that I've heard of. If anything is new that's changing, who knows? Microsoft changes every week. So
yeah, no, they're actually, I think they're deprecating the donation Business Basic licenses too for nonprofits. So not to worry, Laura. The Business Premium itself isn't going away, but if you're currently on the donation SKU, you're probably going to have to pay for it at your next renewal.
Okay, we've got one here from Joseph, who asks, is the initial M365 licensing consultation a paid engagement? I guess that's one directed at TrustedTech.
Yeah, good question. So the initial licensing consultation is completely free, right? We just want to sit down for 30 minutes. We want to look through your environment. You can see here on the screen, this M365 usage report will be sent to you after the call. Hey, what am I using? How much is MSRP? How much am I being charged? And how much would TrustedTech charge me? And then on top of that, the other element of that is, and in my opinion, really the more important part here, the consultative side is, okay, maybe I can get a usage report built out for what my licensing currently looks like today, what it would look like if I were to move to X, Y, or Z license with Microsoft promotions applied. And you can use that as collateral to take it up to leadership and say, hey, I met with TrustedTech. They made a lot of great recommendations from a security and compliance perspective. If we move to this license, we're only going to go up a couple $100s a month after we right size, right? So this is a completely free initial licensing consultation. Please reach out. We really want to meet you guys and make sure you're squared away.
Yeah, and even in the long term, right? Trusted Tech, we highly value relationships over time. This is not a one and done where you guys are talking to us once a year and then we come to renewal season and say we talk again. We want to have a conversation with you all the time. I text a lot of my customers and we all joke around and all that, but in the end, we get business done. We help them save. They're happy with the consultant service to get us. Being a customer Trusted Tech, you will get account managers such as Ramos or myself, who will be able to guide you guys throughout the entire journey, right? We want to make sure we give you updates on Microsoft. We want to make sure that we're optimizing your spend and then helping you guys on your future initiatives. In the end, right, if you guys are standing up full Intune, getting things managed under the Intune platform, and you're saving a bunch of time and also money for your executives, you're going to look great. So that's kind of what we want to do and enable you guys to do, right? So we are all here and ready to serve.
Okay, this one's from Vic, who's wondering what is changing for Defender in Business Premium?
Oh, very good question. John, you want to chime in a little?
Yeah, so probably a clarifying question of that is it going to be the Defender for Office piece? Because I know that some of you might have seen the article, and we also had parts of it posted here in the slides, but it does look like the Defender for Office is going away. That's not the case here. It's going to be still within the Business Premium come July. And like Mr. Ramos said, with the price increases for all the other SKUs and Business Premium staying pretty consistent and also getting 50 gigabytes of mailbox storage, if you're on the fence with the Business Basic and Standard, it would be a great time to invest in the Business Premium now because you're getting so much value out of that license.
Yeah, just a clarifying comment here as well is the Defender license that comes included in Business Premium is what's known as the Defender for Business feature. So what that does is that incorporates elements of both Defender for Office for spam filtering and email protection, as well as Defender for Endpoint for EDR, malware, antivirus, all that good stuff, right? So yeah, definitely something to take into consideration there.
Okay, I've got one here from Michael, who's wondering, I hope I'm getting this question right. I have Business Standard. How do I know what I get?
Good question. Good question. It's funny you bring it up, Michael. There's actually a really cool tool that I use to this day with my clients, right? And here's the thing, Microsoft's always changing stuff, so I got to stay up to standard too, right? You never know what they're going to change from a licensing features perspective. There's a great tool called the M365 Maps feature matrix. You can go through and toggle and essentially see what different features come included in Business Premium versus Business Standard versus ME3, et cetera, et cetera. But for you specifically, off the top of my head, and just doing this for 3 years now, Business Standard is basic, right? It's very simple. Productivity applications, you're getting teams, and realistically, that's pretty much it, right? Comparing that to, say, a Business Premium, if I were to do like a quick cliff notes of what comes included in the Business Premium versus what doesn't come included in the Business Standard, I would say there's 3 main feature capabilities. Entra ID P1, Microsoft Defender for Business, and Microsoft Intune. Those are the big 3 baseline security metrics that you're going to need to hit if you want to really up your game within Microsoft. So those are the big 3 that come included in Business Premium that aren't coming in the Business Standard. Are there some niche feature differences outside of that? Yes, but realistically, they're negligible in my experience. Those are the big 3 you really need to take a look at. And if you want to get granular, the main difference between the Business Standard and the Business Basic, there's really only one. The Business Standard allows you to download the Office applications to your desktop or your device. The Business Basic only allows you to view them via a web browser.
Yeah, and one niche feature that might be relevant for a lot of people would be archiving. So Exchange online archiving on the business standard is 50 gigs, and then on the business premium is 1.5 terabytes. So that's really just one thing that might be important to a lot of people that I can point out here.
Okay, it looks like I want to squeeze in one more quick question before we're out of time. This is from Pallavi, who's asking, I am interested in the free assessment. So how can someone please contact me by mid-March?
We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to connect with you, Pallavi. I think we're going to have a link here that you guys are going to be able to go in and schedule a consultation yourself. So feel free to reference that, get some time on the calendar, and we'll block it off and love to chat with you.
Okay, folks, that's all the time we have for this Tech Talk. I want to thank John Ho and Andrew Ramos for an informative conversation, and many, many, many thanks to the folks at TrustedTech for making this conversation possible. We couldn't have done it without you. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
We appreciate it, John. Thanks so much. Bye, all.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.